In the next couple of lectures, we'll be looking at something called guards. Guards are a way in which we can deny a user from navigating to routes, perhaps because they are not signed in. So if we have some kind of user control panel that you must be logged in to access, we need to somehow validate this. We'll be doing that along with a few other things. So with guards, we essentially guard navigations, which we can do by either redirecting or cancelling a navigation. Guards can be defined globally within a component or directly within a route entry. We'll be taking a look at the latter in this lecture, and I'll get back to the other approaches in the coming lectures. Before getting started, I just want to mention something that is general to all of the approaches. While a guard is invoked during navigation, this is not the case when navigating to the same component by changing a parameter or query parameter. We already saw this when clicking related products. In this case, any guards would not be invoked, and you would have to watch the $route object for changes to handle that scenario. Or use a hook, as I will show you in the next lecture. Alright, so let's get started. I have expanded our application a little bit in advance because I have added a way to simulate logging in and out. For this purpose, I have exported a simple authentication service object from within the main.js file. You can see this simple object right here. It simply contains an isLoggedIn property, which we can then use in various parts of the application. Then I have simply imported this object within the app component and added a data property for it. So let's find that. Right here. Since it's an object, any changes to it will be synchronized throughout the application, because every place we use it shares the same object reference. Then within the template, I have added a button for logging in and out depending on the current state of the data property. I have also added a link for navigating to the user's profile, which just displays a headline. In a real application, this link would only be visible once the user is logged in, but for testing purposes, it will always be displayed in this application. Before we get started on coding, let's just take a moment to see what it looks like in the browser, because we'll be working with this example for the next couple of lectures. So as you can see, we have a login button up here and a link to the profile. So let's just try to log in and navigate to the profile. Like I said, this is all that's displayed on this page, because we are just going to be testing whether or not we can access it. So there is currently nothing preventing me from accessing this page if I'm not logged in. So if I log out and navigate back to the page, it will show up just fine. So let's try that. Now I'm not logged in, and I can navigate to the page exactly as before. Let's change that now by adding a guard. In this lecture, I want to add the guard to the route, so let's open up the routes.js file. We can do this by adding a before_enter function, which takes 3 arguments, the to and from routes, as well as a function called next, which I'll get back to in a moment. First, let's find the new route for viewing the user's profile and add this before_enter function here. And the to, from, and next arguments or parameters. The to and from parameters are the to and from route objects, so we can use them in case we need to inspect where the user is navigating from or to. In this case, the to parameter would be the view profile route itself. In this case, we don't need to make use of these parameters, because all we need to do is to check if the user is logged in. To do that, we need to import the auth service from the main.js file. So let's head up to the imports and do just that. So import auth service from main. Then we can simply check the isLoggedIn property on this object within the before_enter hook. And I will negate this expression because we need to cancel the navigation if the user is not logged in. So how do we cancel the navigation? By using the next parameter. This callback function should be called whenever we are ready to determine what should be done with the navigation. This means that, as we saw with the done callback for transitions and animations, it's possible to do something asynchronous here. Invoking the next parameter resolves the hook. The reason why it's named next is because we may have a chain of guards, such as global guards. What will happen when invoking the function depends on which argument we pass to it, if any. If we pass false to it, the navigation will be cancelled, which is actually what we're looking for in this case. So I'll just add an alert saying that you must be logged in, and then I'll invoke the next callback and pass in false to cancel the navigation. By doing this, the navigation will be cancelled if we're not logged in. If the URL was changed with the browser's back button or manually, it'll be reset to the previous URL. Now we need to do something else though. If this if statement evaluates the false, we'll need to invoke the next function, because we need to let the router know that the hook has been resolved so that it can take the appropriate action. If we want the navigation to succeed, then we should simply invoke this function without any arguments. So let's do that after the if statement. But in the case where the statement evaluates to true, we actually have to add a return statement, because in that case we don't want the hook to continue executing, because that would cause the navigation to succeed when reaching the second next invocation. So it's important that we add a return statement to avoid this. So let's add that here. As simple as that. Alright, we're all done. But before heading to the browser to test it out, I just want to mention that you can also redirect the user to a different page by adding a path to the next function as a string. Alternatively, you can pass an object with the same syntax as for the router link component or the push method when navigating programmatically. Okay, let's open up the browser. When refreshing the page, the isLoggedIn property will be set to false once again, so I should no longer be allowed to navigate to the user profile page. So let's try. And indeed, the navigation is cancelled. If I log in, I should be able to view the page just fine. So let's try. And sure enough, the navigation now works. That is how you can add guards to specific routes. Let's now move on and see how we can add guards to specific components.